You know what? Right now, I've been deliberating the intro, but we're just going to go straight into it. So, hello. I'm sure you know who I am, but if you don't, then my name's Ben, and we're going to be doing somewhat of a little podcast chat, just a bit of a conversation, really, that hopefully you'll be able to get some value from, and we'll enjoy having. So, first guest on whatever you want to call this, I haven't decided yet, is my friend Josh, the hard-looking bastard on the screen right there. And what we're going to be talking about is Josh's fitness journey, if you like. He's someone who I've had the pleasure of seeing go through a load of peaks and troughs, just like we all do, when he's, trying to reach whatever goal that he's trying to reach at that time. And he's on the, I'd like to say tail end, but I think he would agree that there's still some ways to go, of, really achieving quite a lot recently, using sort of methods and stuff like that that are much more sustainable, much more useful and practical, that hopefully he's going to be able to use to keep the progress that he's made over a longer period of time. So that being said, hello, Josh.
Hello, how we doing?
I'm all right, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for coming on. I mean, it was a bit of a conjoint effort, I think, just the idea of getting this started, and I think it was an idea that we had a long time ago, before we'd started on this latest sprint for getting fit and getting you in the shape where you wanted to be. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
no, I think we must have planned this most weeks. I think we've mentioned it most weeks, and then it just never happens. It's just one of those
I
things where
know.
like we're
It's one of
definitely doing it next week, and then no, didn't carry on, did it? But
I know.
we've got it.
But I definitely remember, like, around, so at the moment, just a bit of context for time, we are sitting on Tuesday the 11th of May. Oh, Siri, I don't want you. Tuesday the 11th of May. So we are pretty much out of lockdown. Gyms have been open for enough time now to sort of get back into it, and get back into the swing of things, which for me and Josh is something that's really important. Obviously, me working in one, but also just for general, the way I like to live my life. I love the gym, and Josh is someone who's very similar in that sense. Who would you say you struggled during lockdown?
um, it depends what we're talking about, really. In terms of mentally, I think I was okay, like steady. I wouldn't say there was any low points. But obviously, in terms of health wise, body wise, not a lot going on, and a lot of food. That's
There is a lot of
that
food.
is a lot of food.
When you're that close to the fridge, it can get a bit crazy. As not just you, I think everyone found that out. I think it wasn't, everyone's put on a bit of weight. It's usually Christmas, but it was Christmas, and then it extended from there, because we had that sort of, what was it, a 3 or maybe 4 month lockdown where there was no real end in sight. No one really knew when it was going to end. Um, but we know that you don't necessarily need gyms in order to reach any particular goal that you want to reach, unless you're trying to be like a power lifter and lift heavy numbers and stuff like that. You don't necessarily need a gym. And I think that's something that you found, where I believe it was, so when did gyms open back up? What date was it?
Or April
April the
14th, something like that.
12th or
Mid-April,
14th? Yeah, mid-April.
definitely mid-April. Yeah.
And I think maybe late February, beginning of March, around that time, you made the decision, right, we're going to actually attack this. And you wanted to basically put yourself in a position to where by the time that the gyms open back up, that you'd be in a decent place. You'd be, lose a little bit of fat that you wanted to lose, but also, be in a place where you're training to where you're sort of muscles, tendons, ligaments, all them things and stuff just wouldn't have a huge shock from going back to any kind of resistance training. So where were you? Where had you, I would say, regressed to in during the periods of lockdown that we had after all that time? And where did you want to be, and whereabouts are you now on that spectrum, I suppose?
God, so many questions.
I know.
We'll start with start of lockdown. We're talking weight wise,
Yep.
like I'd say high 80s, maybe 80, 87, 88 kilos.
And you're 5'10",
Yeah, 5'10", 5'11" on a good
5'10",
day. 5'11" on a good day, yeah.
but no one, you're not allowed to say you're 5'11".
I'm not, am I? Okay.
If you're
Sorry.
5'11", then you say you're 6 foot. So no,
I do. Well,
no
I'm
one's ever
six.
really
Should I say 6 foot?
you're 6 foot. So
Yeah, 6 foot.
yeah, no. And weight's a good metric, but as far as when you're taking your pictures and stuff like that, and just looking in the mirror, what was, let's say, on a scale of 1 to 10, what was the appeal? Were you happy with what you saw? That kind of thing. Because I think that's the real motivator. You didn't look at a number on a scale necessarily and go, fuck, that needs to change. I think for most people, it's the being able to just feel confident, feel better when maybe even when you're training, but also just generally in yourself. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how did you feel in that sense?
In talking before lockdown had started, this was
So we're talking like
this is
last
like, yeah, we're talking February time. So I'm still at uni at this point. This is like a week before I'm going home as lockdown's about to happen. So I'm rushing home before lockdown happens. I'm quite happy. I've been back at gym at uni, strength's flying up, physique. I'm looking quite big, but obviously not. The fat isn't too high at that point. I'm like, the physique's looking quite good. Maybe I'm quite harsh on how I'm happy about it, but I'd say maybe like a 7 out of 10. Like, I'm not perfect, but I'm getting into the right place where I want it to be.
This is
Definitely
before any lockdowns or anything.
before any lockdowns at all. Gym every day, playing rugby at uni, all of that's going on at this point. Yeah.
Right. And then how did that change by the time we got to this sort of late February, early March of 2021 to where you went, right, something needs to change here?
Well, is a long one. So if we go, the way I'd say it started to get like worse and noticeable would be after August 2020.
Okay.
So I strained my MCL in my knee. So it went from doing those little bits to nothing at all, like no running. At this point, I didn't use, or I did have weights at home, but I didn't use any of them. And obviously, the eating was just constant. Like I wouldn't say that, like, obviously at the moment I'm eating not a lot of food compared to then, but easily double whatever I'm having now. I was definitely on double then, just because anything that was there I was having, and I have no problem with that. I've got quite a big stomach when it comes to it. If
Yeah,
needed,
if
then I
needed.
can eat a lot. But yeah, at the time it wasn't very good.
So you're sort of at a place where you're kind of injured, so your activity levels are very much down. The fridge is seemingly ever closer as the days go by during lockdown. And I think you're in a position, I think I would admit the same, just like me, where home workouts, home training didn't quite do it for you, because you actually go to the gym not because you have to, but because you actually want to. And it's the routine of things and stuff like that, the actual going to a different place that you enjoyed. So when you couldn't run and stuff like that, you could call it motivation. The motivation to train wasn't quite there. And did you feel like you're in sort of just a bit of like a downward spiral kind of thing?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think the one thing I'll talk about in terms of, we could go the last 3 years, 4 years.
Yeah.
I've never had to worry about a diet in terms of, I could pretty much, I ate what I want, and then it didn't affect me. It didn't, like, the weight didn't fly up or anything like that, because I was doing so
Doing
much.
so much.
As soon as that goes, but you're still going to eat the same.
Because you played a lot of rugby before,
Yeah, I was
you did a lot of stuff. You were always
rugby
doing
twice
stuff.
a week, gym pretty much every day.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, I wasn't like tired. I was always just full of energy. And then as soon as that goes, it does hit you quite quickly.
Yeah, no, 100%. It literally was just a sudden, like, bang, it's all gone, and we don't know when it's coming back. And fucking hell, I hope it doesn't happen again. But the good thing is, if we're coming back to sort of around more recent times, you managed to do something about it.
I did.
So where are you sitting at now weight wise? Bearing in mind we started sort of, I believe you say high 80s. I think we were almost pretty much at that 90 kilogram.
Well, if we're talking the actual point where we actually started to change things, it was 94 and a half that we actually.
Yeah, I was gonna say I
Yeah,
definitely remember seeing a
the
9
high
on those
80s
scales.
was a good point when I was at uni before that
Oh
first
right, okay.
lockdown. Yeah, but when I've got luckily I've got it all on my phone. I track everything. I'm a bit of a control freak with all that. So
What doesn't get tracked doesn't improve.
13 weeks ago is when I first started tracking my calories. And at that point, I was at least 94, if not 94 and a half kilos
Yeah.
at that point. So quite a lot of weight on me at that point there.
And we're sitting at now.
Ooh, the
Don't
small.
act like you didn't weigh yourself this morning.
Yeah, no, I did. I think it was 79.3, something around there.
That's awesome, man.
Not too bad. Empty stomach every morning is this. I've wanted to keep it always every morning. I'm gonna
Yeah,
weigh myself, so then it's
it
always
keeps it a
you
fair
know what's
test.
happening. Yeah,
Yeah, no, for sure. I always say it doesn't matter what time. A lot of people ask me that question. Oh, what time's best to weigh yourself? It doesn't matter as long as you're weighing yourself at the same time
exactly. Yeah,
every day, around abouts. Mainly just because you're eating that kind of thing, all that water levels and stuff like that. It all just it's going to be the same at whatever time of day. Usually you weigh yourself at. But mate, that's awesome. So you've lost a good amount of weight, and you know I think I may be wrong in saying this. You let me know, but something that was a big difference. Obviously, I've known you for a while now, and I've seen you, as I said before, go through the peaks and troughs and try to do different things. That this time, it's fair to say that you did it a lot more patiently, a lot more sustainably, and perhaps using some methods and stuff that you hadn't used before.
yeah, definitely. I think it was the first time I've ever consistently tracked what I've eaten. So I think before this, I reckon the longest I'd gone using MyFitnessPal would be maybe probably not even a month. I reckon a couple of weeks, if that. And that's the longest I'd ever been tracking my calories.
Yeah,
And obviously to now where I'm on week 14, 13, 13, 14, something like that. And I'm still going from there, which is obviously a long period of time to be still doing it at compared to what I've done in the past.
definitely. I think a lot of with any behavior change, it really comes from people always a lot of times people talk about the difference between motivation and discipline and anything like that. And I think the way that most things like this happen is there is usually that initial period of motivation where whether it comes from an outside source like somebody else motivating you, or just the fact that inside you were like, okay, something needs to change. I think that's an important part of it. But the reason that you've stuck to certain behaviors, I think, is just because, like any other thing in life, you start to see the value in it. And life is just a game of values. And I think you started to realize that there is very much a value in tracking things, whether it be your weight or your food or pretty much anything. I know you track a lot of like your numbers in the gym and stuff like that, which is all really good stuff. I think it's something that a lot of people miss out on. I always say it. I've said it once and I'll say it again. What doesn't get tracked doesn't improve. And I think that's been one of the main factors in your success this time.
Yeah, definitely. I think without that, then I don't think it would have been to the same effects whatsoever.
No.
I mean, in terms of
Carol.
what I've got, if I was going to list everything that I can remember that I'm tracking at the moment, it does seem a bit too far. But if I went, it's got obviously calories every day, my steps every day,
Hmm.
all of my workouts. So every number weight that I'm lifting, every rep, all of that is listed, written down. I've got all of my runs, every run that I've got, every time I've done in those runs. So all of that is
You
all on
bought
there.
you bought a Fitbit as well, didn't you?
I
After
have.
me hounding you to get one.
It is a game changer, the
It
Fitbit. Yeah.
is. I try and get anyone to get one because it really does. It does make a difference. Not just Fitbit, but like a Apple Watch or anything. No, it's really good. One of the questions I sort of have for you, and I guess it's a difficult question to answer because you have to actually think about yourself and I suppose compare yourself to others in a way. But why for you, from the outside looking in at least, does it seem so seamless? It seems like there's not a lot of friction or necessarily like difficulty with the processes that you're doing. You seem like you're very comfortable in the processes that you're doing. For example, like I know your morning ritual, you go out for a walk with your dog, you're doing certain things. What do you think makes it something you're able to just do and something that, and stay consistent with?
I think you got to, the way I've looked at it, from if we look at where I'm at right now in terms of the calories, the steps, just everything that's all sorted, that's like you're looking at the end product sort of thing. I'm not, obviously not the end product in terms of where I'm at physically,
Hmm.
but in terms of the organization, that's the where you want to be.
Hmm.
That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be there in a week. Like
100%.
all of that, if we're talking all of those things that I've now got that I'm doing, I wasn't doing all of those things even 5 weeks ago.
No, you weren't.
Slowly I've built them all up, whether it's from the steps slowly got built up as soon as we were allowed outside, stuff like that. The tracking, the calories, it was always there, but obviously I wasn't always on the perfect amount. Some days I was on amounts that were too high, but I was still tracking it just
Definitely.
to get into that groove and
Yeah,
have
it's
that
all about
mindset.
habits. It's all
Yeah,
about
exactly.
habits.
If we
And
talk about the first few weeks, me and you, well, I've got to thank you because I'd send you my calories every day, and that would be making sure that I'm doing it.
just a little bit of accountability.
Just a little accountability, because if I didn't have that at the time, I wouldn't have done it.
No.
But we were doing it for so long, but even just a few weeks of that, suddenly I'm into that kind of motion of sticking to it. And now, without even thinking about it, in the morning, I'm waking up, I'm going for a big walk, taking the dog out,
Yeah.
pop a podcast on, and I'm already writing down exactly what I'm eating for the day. And it's all planned out. And I haven't even thought about it. Like, that's just me waking up and suddenly
What
I'm
you do.
all done. Yeah.
No, that's really good. And the hardest part for a lot of people find is at the very start of the process, which is when they're trying to do all these things all at once. Like, okay, now I need to track my calories, steps. What am I going to do? Okay, I need to go to the gym 5 days a week. When am I going to fit that in my job? Okay, I've got to go pick up kids, do whatever you got to do. And you've made the best point there, which is at the start, focus on just the little things. Just pick one thing and just add it into your life and practice the routine of it, get used to doing it, and then throw something else in. It's annoying because people don't like to hear it because it sounds like you're almost babying them. It sounds like you're just saying, "Oh, just do this tiny little thing and just keep doing it." And it just sounds people don't like the idea that doing one little thing every day consistently doesn't sound amazing, but what that can actually end up leading to is the amazing thing. It's not glamorous doing small things every day, day in, day out. But to get glamorous results, that is where it comes from. So, you know, building them habits and stuff is huge. And I think that's the thing that people really don't value as much as they need to, which is just habits and not trying to rush things. I think one of the big things as well that has been a factor for you is it's much easier to not get bogged down with yourself where, like you said, if you don't do something perfectly, when you kind of look at it in a lot more of a flexible mindset. And I think for you, something that I've noticed is one of the biggest things for calories and protein and stuff like that, but mainly calories, that helped you was looking at your calories instead of a daily target but as a weekly target. How has that helped you?
Honestly, it's the best thing to do because by having that daily target, you have to be perfect every day, which we all know we're not going to be perfect every day. I'm definitely not perfect every day.
Hmm.
So by doing it as a week, you're able to say you have 3 really good days. You might be under your calories, but then on that Thursday, you have a really bad day, go for a heavenly desserts, have Five Guys, anything like that. But because you've gone that little bit lower in those first few days, you've got that room for error. and it's okay to like go a bit over on those days.
100%. So
Or if you
I think one of the things, so you were obviously going for around about, let's say, a 14,000 a week calorie target. Now, for someone who wasn't doing that, they may look at it as a 2,000 a day calorie target, which fine is a really good idea if you are not likely to more likely to go out for dinner on a Friday, or, go for a few drinks on a Saturday, or do whatever that you do that means that you'd consume more calories on that day. If you're not like that, then it's fine, but most people aren't. So what we're saying is that, let's say, yeah, you have 14,000 calories for the week. You may choose to, rather than eating 2,000 a day over the 7-day period, you go, right, so I'm going to have 1,800 per day, and then the 200 for, so 1,800 for the first 5 days or 4 days, or whatever the way you want to do it, whatever day you're more likely to consume more calories. You then have saved up calories for later on. Your body doesn't actually know what a 24-hour period is, as far as when it should be consuming calories, and it won't store it differently because of when you've taken them in. So I think that's something that people should really, one of the first things that they should take on board is choosing when they're going to have their calories throughout their week, because we're all very guilty at some points in our lives of, you have a great week. Monday to Friday is really good. I've hit my calories every single day. But then Saturday and Sunday rolls around, or Friday and Saturday rolls around, and it just all goes out the window. So yeah, I think that's something that has definitely made a difference for you.
I think with that, what you said there, definitely when you talk about the weekend, those Monday to Friday calories, if you can bring them down, even if it's just a little bit every day, by the time you got to the weekend, say if you even just did 100 or 200 calories per day,
Mhm.
that's 1,000 calories extra. That if you do have that slip up at the weekend, there's nothing to worry about, because
Giving yourself leeway.
given, yeah, because if you've, it's not about, you're not going to force, you don't have to force down your calories in the week, but if you think, oh, I could eat that little bit less, it will make a difference and make it easier for you, especially if you are going out on the weekends and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, you got to figure it out for your lifestyle. Maybe, I don't know, you go to I don't know, whatever you do, maybe on a Tuesday night. It doesn't have to just be on the weekends, but it is just about doing it in a very personal approach to you, what works for you. And that's the same with any of the stuff that we talk about, or, that, if you're going to try to reach a goal and you're trying to change your habits to reach that, you've just got to do it for you. Don't try and copy what, Jimmy down the road does, because he says that fucking cutting out all carbs works for him. It's whatever for your lifestyle works for you. And I think that's one of the things that, I think any good PT coach, or just anyone who knows anything about, really reaching goals in this space, really tries to ram down people's throats. But yeah, I think you've done really well. I mean, as far as training and stuff like that, coming back from the gyms, do you find that it's been a decent transition? How do you feel like it's gone?
I mean, quite an easy transition, to be honest with you. I think obviously it would depend for other people if they've been gym before and what their kind of lifestyle's been like. But obviously for me, for the last few years, it's just been a natural thing to do anyway. So as
Yeah.
soon as they were back, it was just straight back to it, straight back to work, and keep that consistency going, and back to what we all wanted to do throughout that whole lockdown, to be honest with you. So it wasn't too bad.
Yeah. I mean, because you're someone who enjoys gym, I think it's a lot easier. I always try and tell people, if you're not enjoying it, you're not going to stay consistent with it. And, you know, it's easier for some, and some things, don't get me wrong, you just have to force yourself through. I think everyone should be doing some kind of resistance training, just for, the benefits it has. Osteoporosis, offsetting osteoporosis, which is bad bone health, sarcopenia, which is like muscles withering away as you get older. It's good for everyone. Bone density, a million things that you could say, but everyone should be doing it. But there's a way to make it exciting. There's a way to make whatever kind of training that you're going to do a way that actually makes you enjoy it. And I think that's what people struggled with during lockdown so much. Like, that was the biggest, that was the hardest thing. But also, we had mentioned that thing earlier of accountability. Do you think you would, how important was accountability at the start in your journey, and did you think you had that before, when we're talking about lockdown, before lockdown and stuff like that? Did you need it? How's that work for you?
Are we talking in terms of food, or is this more
Just
vague?
in general, just training, diet, all that kind of stuff.
I think if in terms of training, I was always accountable. I was always pushing myself to the limits. I think sometimes when you're doing something for so long, you can get too comfortable. But I was always quite cautious with, if I was too comfortable, then to push yourself even more. In terms of food wise, I mean, there wasn't much accountability at all, really. I
Yeah,
think that is a lot of people, well, they talk about how important it is. Obviously, it's important, but you don't always realize it until you actually start to do it.
yeah,
Because obviously, I mean, for the last 4 years, if not longer, I've always eaten whatever I wanted and not had to worry about it. There was no effects of it.
yeah. I
And
mean,
then by suddenly sorting that out and changing that, the difference it can make and how much easier it will be, it's
yeah,
half the work, really. That's 50% of it. It's not just about going to the gym and being consistent. As soon
no,
as you've got that food as well and you've got that on the right track, it makes the world a difference.